Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show, where you'll find health and fitness inspiration, motivation, and information shared in 15-minute episodes. Tune in while getting a move on to make leading and enjoying the benefits of a healthy lifestyle almost too easy. It's the Fit 15. And now your host, Catherine Basu.
Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show. I'm your host, Catherine Basu, and since this podcast show is fairly new, I wanted to remind you of something you heard about in the intro, but might not really know about, and that is that I always encourage my listeners, so that means you, to get up and get moving while tuning into the episodes. And I try to keep the episodes around 15 minutes because there's some magic to getting moving for 15 minutes. So when we get to the halfway point of 15 minutes, 7.5 minutes into today's episode, you'll hear a little instrumental cue, a little guitar sound playing, and that is your cue to turn around if you are doing an out and back walk, maybe taking a very short break. So just in case you run over 15 minutes, which we will just slightly for today's episode, you'll be able to get back to what you need to get done and get that benefit of getting some movement in during your busy day. All right, so that brings me to today's guest, Barbara Spanjers. Barbara Spanjers is a therapist and wellness coach who is hell-bent on helping women banish the evil tag team of food guilt and body shame. She draws from a diverse educational and career background, including media production, massage therapy, and psychotherapy. In her wellness coaching practice, Cake is Magical Wellness, Barb takes a weight-inclusive approach to help her clients heal their relationship with food and their bodies. She offers wellness coaching programs to help people move from a place of judgment and self-criticism to curiosity and self-compassion. You can catch Barb at www.barbaraspanjers.com, where she infuses a sense of humor and irreverence into her writing. She fears no food except beets and loves to help others do the same. So welcome to the podcast show, Barbara.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. This is great.
You're so welcome. And I'm really excited for our conversation today. We're going to be talking about diets in disguise. I know that diets definitely bring about a lot of shame and food guilt and things that I know you work to help your clients avoid. And I know that I see that the relationship we have with our exercise routines and or what we're eating can definitely impact whether or not we're successful in reaching our goals to be healthier, and ultimately why a lot of us embark on a healthy lifestyle journey to become happier. And so I'd love for you to share with us, Barbara, this notion of diets in disguise and why it is that a lot of our current eating philosophies don't have the word diet in them, and what we should be aware of and kind of how that can affect us as we're going about this journey to be healthier and happier.
Well, I think in some ways the word diet is a little bit on its way out. You know, I read something not too long ago, even some of the brands out there like Lean Cuisine and Special K, you know, those things that were kind of diet foods, they're kind of rebranding themselves. Weight Watchers is kind of rebranding themselves.
Yes.
Because diet got this kind of bad name, really, because, generally they don't work. The statistics are pretty darn abysmal, like anywhere, up to 95%. Sometimes you see the statistics cited a little bit differently, but up to 95% of people who intentionally try to lose weight on a diet will regain that weight, and often more. And so that word has kind of gone out of vogue. And also people are a little bit less concerned with weight loss these days than they are with health. Although sometimes it's still very much tied together. People kind of put them one and the same, where they are trying to lose weight because they think it's going to help their health, or they're just kind of almost interchangeable. But now, you don't see the word diet as much, and you don't see such an upfront focus on weight loss, but it's kind of almost more like we'll get you around the corner. Like, if you get healthier, you're going to lose weight, which may or may not be true. You can actually improve your health. You can improve your health tremendously and your fitness tremendously, even if you never lose weight. So in some ways, it's good that they're not putting weight loss front and center all the time, because a lot of times when people don't see the scale change, they'll stop going to the gym, or they'll stop doing whatever activity they were doing. So in that way, it's kind of good. But it's just kind of morphed, and it's kind of gone more underground in a way. So you almost have to be more of a detective to try to pick up at the underlying intent of an eating plan. Just clean eating is a perfect one. There's no real definition of what is clean eating. Like, what does that mean? Because one person will say one thing and the next person will say the next, and there's no real hard and fast kind of definition of it.
Right. No, that's
but there
true.
is a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame around it. If you're not eating clean by one person's standards, you get the stink eye sometimes.
Right.
I've definitely had that happen to me, being a personal trainer and eating with friends who eat healthy and not eating quote unquote healthy myself and being judged for that. So I can definitely relate. So Barbara, for our listeners who have maybe experienced that as well, and, want some guidance here, how would you define a diet? How can we know whether or not something is a diet?
One of the things that I say is, what is it asking you to do, and what is it telling you to do, basically? Is it telling you in some capacity what you can or can't eat, when you should eat or shouldn't eat, and how much you should or shouldn't eat? Mm-hmm. So, and that gives it, by that definition, gives a very broad definition, but right. Ultimately, though, what's happening is, if an eating plan or a philosophy is telling you what to eat and when to eat and how much to eat, it's actually taking your own autonomy away on many levels. And so you tend to tune out from your own body and follow these external rules. And that usually doesn't lead anywhere good in the big picture. It leads to a lot of disordered eating, or a lot of tuning out. Like, people, when I work with clients, a lot of times people, they might have a hard time even telling when they're physically hungry, but then they even have a harder time figuring out when they're getting full and when they might consider ending a meal.
Got it. So for those of us that are looking to get healthy or advising others to make healthier choices, what can we do then to make sure that we are helping ourselves, helping others eat healthier, make those healthier choices, but not go down this path of restriction and the whole diet and guilt part that can backfire on us? What do you recommend for that? Yeah.
Well, one of it sounds simple, but it can be kind of complicated, is to remove the judgment from food. All mm-hmm. food has some sort of nutrition to it, even a candy bar.
If you're walking with us, that's your cue to turn around. We're at our halfway point for 15 minutes.
Is going to have some nutritional value. It's different than a carrot, but all foods have some nutrition, and all foods can fit into, a healthful lifestyle. So the problem is when foods get judged as good or bad in some capacity, it ends up, a lot of times, of course, it's the things that we think taste good that end up in the bad camp. And so right. it kind of ends up giving power to the food. So for anybody who's working on this, is to try to take that judgment out of it. Food is just food. It's not good or bad, no matter what it is, whether it's Cheetos or whether it's, kale, it's just food. And it sounds counterintuitive, but the fact is those rules don't tend to work. So anybody who's been on diets kind of knows, because they're like, wherever they are now, they're usually not too happy. They're like, I just need a new plan. So what happens is, removing that judgment then starts to allow you to tune into your body and go, what do I need now? What am I hungry for now? And so it's not that nutrition doesn't matter, but it's not strict. I don't know if I answered your question in enough detail, or there's something else you're looking for.
No, it sounds good. So it really comes down to trying to tune back into how our bodies are feeling versus, these external rules that we're trying to make intuitive, but not really. They can't really be that mm-hmm. way because they're not, how our bodies work.
Right. A plan can never know how hungry you actually are on any given day. We never really know. Sometimes I liken this to sleep. If you had a plan that said you need to sleep exactly 6 3/4 hours every single day, that's probably not going to work. Some days you need more. Some days you might want to sleep more and you can't sleep, but you get up and you may or may not have energy. I know sometimes there have been times where I've not gotten enough sleep and I had surprisingly enough energy the next day, but then the day after that, it was like, oh, Oh, heck no. I'm so tired. So, and so I think we are better at that sort of thing, understanding, oh my gosh, I haven't been getting enough sleep. I need to sleep. And nobody's telling us, oh, you have to cut off your sleep at 10 hours or, the world's going to end. So just to try to take that sort of philosophy into your eating as well and understand that some days you're going to need more food than others. And some days you might not need as much. I mean, I've had clients who even have kind of forced themselves to eat because some plan that they had been on said they could have so many points or calories or whatever they were counting. And they're like, oh, I actually need to eat more. It's like, well, did you want to eat more?
Right.
So it can go in all directions.
Right. No, that's important to understand.
So I guess then along those lines, I know I often encourage clients to eat more whole fruits and vegetables for a variety of reasons. And I'm wondering, how can I frame that idea to them and help them think about this idea of increasing the number of whole fruits and or vegetables they eat in a given day or a given week in a way that is not going to end up being a diet in disguise for them?
I think it's going to be a little bit tough if somebody hates vegetables.
Right.
They always have to be doing it in a way that's going to be palatable to them, of course. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is just a lot of experimentation and curiosity. So there's no one way that you have to get right on day one. It's a matter of making those suggestions and saying, hey, what would it be like if you added, extra pieces of fruit into your diet or a salad or something that's not, blend it up into a smoothie, and then just kind of make a note to yourself, how am I feeling as I'm eating it? How am I feeling afterwards? Did I have more energy? Did I not? What was the experience of having to sit down and eat something as opposed to a smoothie, you can walk around and, you can be driving in your car and drinking a smoothie out of a straw.
Right.
Sitting down with foods that can't be so easily portable sometimes makes you sit and focus on your food more as you're eating. So it's a lot of just experimentation and letting the client be curious as to their own experience.
Love this idea and this concept, Barb. As someone who has a background in the sciences, my college major was biology, I am definitely down with helping people do some experiments. So I am excited for this way to frame things for my clients. I really appreciate that. I know, I don't want to be the food police for them or create a lot of rules for them. So that's really important to me. I know I don't do well with the food police myself.
That judgment doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help it. It feels bad when someone does it to you. It feels bad when you do it to somebody. I mean, sometimes that feels temporarily good because we feel kind of morally superior, but it doesn't feel good when you do it to yourself either. And It just creates problems. I know sometimes people always think, oh my gosh, but if I stop with the kind of rules, I'm just going to eat ice cream all day. And I'm like, you might for a couple of days, but that's just going to get really old really fast. I mean, it really will. So it's that sort of letting up in order to let your own, I don't want to say control, it puts you back in charge. That's a better word than in control. To the point where then you can have sweets around and you can have some if you want, or they'll sit there. I mean, I actually have some cookies in my pantry and they've been sitting there. Like, that never would have happened in the past, right? When I was following a lot of plans, it would be like, oh my God, I was bad and I ate the cookies. Let me just eat the whole package and I'll just get it out of my system.
Right. No, that's true.
I was actually having this same conversation with a registered dietitian friend of mine, and I was telling her how I don't go to Trader Joe's very often anymore because I would end up buying certain snacks of theirs and just eating the whole thing all in one sitting. And she actually told me basically what you were saying is that, you could buy that, get it out of your system. You're not going to end up eating brownies for life. And looking back, that was true. I didn't end up just eating brownies for life and just craving them.
No, and you won't. And eventually people come around to, so I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. My background is in behavior change as a therapist and a coach. But eventually you'll come around to what one of the founders of intuitive eating call it gentle nutrition. So it's not the judgy kind, but eventually you come around where you're able to say, oh, wow, I actually really am in the mood for a salad now, or veggies. I mean, not everybody likes salad.
Right.
But it's a process that you eventually come around to, and then your body will naturally seek out a wide variety of foods in the big picture. But if you've been like dieting or following a lot of strict eating philosophies for a while, it can take a while to sort that out.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the best advice we can give people really is to not go on a diet, but who has ever really not gone on any diet?
Exactly. Well, I know I saw a statistic. I was going to look it up right before we got on here and I can't find it, but it's something like, 80% of, I want to say like 12-year-olds have been on a diet, something like that. It was, don't quote me on that, but it was something high and something very sad. It was like, oh my gosh. But I don't have the exact number off the top of my head.
No, I think, remembering back to when I was that age and just also, just working with children, like I've been a classroom teacher. So I worked with middle school and high school freshmen. And then I coach for girls in like 3rd to 5th grade. And even them, you hear them talking about just different things or things that their moms are doing. And, and you can see that statistic is probably true, unfortunately. So
yes. Yeah, and we're actually, that brings us into even the second topic that we were going to talk about.
I know, I'm trying not to, to go there, but it's on my mind.
Always kind of is, because it is something that's important to me and to help my clients with. So before we do transition topics, Barb, I wanted to ask you, just kind of driving it home here for us, why do we not want to be on a diet? Why do we want to be looking out for these diets in disguise?
Well, because what it does is it teaches you to actually ignore your own body, your own signals of hunger and satiety and fullness, and your own body's kind of cues of telling you what it would like to eat nutritionally. And it creates a lot of disordered eating in the big picture, a lot of that all or nothing. Oh, I was bad, so let me just eat the whole pan. It's like, if you would just step back and take the big picture, the big view, right, you would actually eat fewer of those salted caramel brownies than if you figure, oh, I've got to be perfect starting Monday. Let me just do it all now.
Right.
So they just tend to breed this all or nothingness, this perfection that usually just, not only does it lead to the behavior of like kind of going up the roller coaster and down, but it can actually create binging. I mean, binge eating disorder really a lot of times comes because people have in some way been restricting their food. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's the rebound.
Got it.
That comes from it.
It sounds too, I guess, kind of taking that approach of being present with our food. I feel like that's a very popular thing in our culture now, just talking about being present with anything, but maybe just making sure we're bringing that to our food is a good way to not be dieting by accident.
Yeah, well, and this gets back to the first thing we were talking about, diets that aren't called diets. I have seen some people purporting to use, mindful eating as a way to lose weight. And that's not what the intention of it is. The intention of any kind of mindfulness, whether it's mindful eating or meditation or mindful movement, is to be present in the moment with the activity. So there's no kind of end goal. The end goal really is to be present. Right. And so if you're doing it like, oh my gosh, if I do this, then I'll lose weight, you're actually not really doing mindfulness.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that movement a lot. And I didn't even think about that before, but you're right. You're not in the moment if you're thinking about the future moment.
Right. Well, and even if we could count every unit of energy, AKA calorie and, macros and all that, our bodies have all these systems that we don't control. We don't control a lot of what goes on with our bodies, with our metabolism and our endocrine system and all of that. So the whole idea of if I eat this many fewer calories, I'll lose this X number of pounds, like that's just not actually how our bodies work. Our bodies really have a range of weight that they like to be at. And so if you go below where your body naturally wants to be, it's going to fight you like crazy to get back to where it wants to be. And that's why a lot of times we see weight loss in the short term. And when I say short term, when you're talking about weight, it can be a couple of years. Right. And then the weight comes back because your body's like, oh yeah, I haven't forgotten. You've been shortchanging me on the food all this time. So it'll actually slow down its metabolism. So and the opposite is also true. If you aren't somebody who has dieted, it's actually kind of hard to gain a lot of weight because your body goes, yeah, I'm good. And if you eat more than you need, it'll kind of tend to speed up its metabolism. But when we interfere through dieting over years, then we do see more of that actual weight coming on and off and going up and down.
So you have to fight the urge to give in to what society has told us that we can do and should want to focus on, which is losing a lot of pounds in a short amount of time, and that dieting is the answer to making us possibly healthier, but as we were often told, happier too.
Right. And that's totally what our society sells us. If you lose weight, you'll be happier. And that's baloney. I was going to say malarkey. I love that when Vice President Biden would say that. Malarkey.
Yeah. Well, Barbara, this has been really fun. And we have another topic we have to get into. But before, we kind of alluded to it, but before we do, I just want to let people know that they can go and check out, you have a one-page download that summarizes how to spot a diet in disguise, or one in sheep's clothing, over on your website. So we have that for them to check out, just to kind of make sure, that they're not falling into some of the traps that are out there. And that's at your website, barbaraspanjers.com/diet in sheep's clothing. And we'll put that link in the show notes. But anything else that you want to let them know, or just kind of drive home here?
Well, I guess, one of the saddest things is, like, when we're all focused on what we should or shouldn't eat, we just lose pleasure. We lose pleasure in eating. And really, through the entire world and throughout all of history, food has been a way for families to come together, and neighbors and friends, and it's very social. And so I feel like when we're focusing on, like, what's chemically in the food, like how much nutrition, we're actually losing some of the nutrition, in the sense that it's part of our way of connecting.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show for this topic, and
thank you.
And we'll have people have to come tune back in for the next segment.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode of the Fit 15. Barb will be back next month, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that episode, where we'll talk about how to be a healthy role model. As a personal trainer, I can tell you that if this is one of your goals and one of your big whys, your reasons for getting healthy, that is a great sign, because most of my clients who have that as a goal are the ones that are most effective. So we're just going to give you a few extra pointers as you embark on that goal, if that's one of the things that you're thinking about. I hope you tune in tomorrow and to chat with you then.
Thanks for listening to the Fit 15. For show notes and more, visit fitarmadillo.com/podcast. See you next time.